I have a document in my hand that is from you. That is a document you have written by Kakuchiame, The Fat We Eat. And the introduction, the first paragraph reads, "Fat is essential for humans and all living things. The biological cells cannot live without fatty acids. Humans and animals tend to eat and digest food that helps them to produce the type of fatty acids the cell and the body need."
Well, let's put it this way. I can only simplify it by telling myself and everybody that there are certain animals, especially mammals, which do not ostensibly eat fat. But when you kill them, you find that there are plenty of fat in their body. For example, the cow, the female cow, as the cow is the female, and when it's pregnant and it delivers the small, cow or whatever, it has to feed it, and it feeds it with milk, just like the female human being feeds the baby with milk. That milk is full of fat, and that's what we get butter from. And the fat in the milk is what keeps the baby healthy when it's being fed solely on milk. It's been found that when you use that fat to feed the baby, or you feed the baby on milk, the baby does not become sick. And I think all of us have the evidence. And it's because of the fatty acids, that's the fat in the milk, that prevents the diseases that will attack the baby. Science has gone on to find out why that fat is so good for the baby. And it's been found that the same fat is what you find in coconut oil and palm kernel oil.
Coconut and palm kernel oil?
Yes. And then part of that fat too is found in palm oil, shea butter, cocoa butter, and olive oil. So if you ask me why animals should eat these oils, it's because they produce it naturally. I mean, cattle, as I said, don't really ostensibly, that is, it looks as if they don't eat oil, but they do, and they produce a lot of oil. And at least you know that we have the oil in their breast milk.
Yeah.
So that's the point about the importance of fat. Now, to answer the question about the value of fat to the cell,
yes,
is that the cell cannot survive without fat, because the cell has a sort of house. It's called the cell wall, and the scientists call it the bilayer of fatty acids, which surrounds the cell. It protects the cell from diseases. The cell wall also allows the cell to make signals go through from one cell to the other, or even within the cell itself. And those signals are electrical signals. Like if you see something, what happens is that the light is converted to electrical signals in the body, and the cell itself does something called transduction. That it transduces the light signal into electrical signals, which passes from cell to cell till it gets into your brain. And the nerves have these cells. And the covering, like any electrical signal, for it to go through something, it needs a conductor. And that conductor is the head of the fatty acid. That's the oil head. It's called carboxyl. And then the insulation, it is the carbon chain, which comes at the end of the fat. So you see that it covers the cell, and it serves as a conductor and an insulator. So that's why the cell requires the fat around it. And because nature, or God, or whatever you want to call it, created it that way and made sure that the fat is there, so the cell produces the fat itself. So in cattle, you see that they don't take fat directly. But what they do is they take grass, and the grass goes into their first stomach, And then the first stomach converts it, it ferments it. And the fermentation introduces one of the fatty acids that normally does not become fat. It's called acetic acid. And acetic acid is used to produce the fat in the body. That's how all the mammals tend to have fat in their body. So if they don't eat grass, they normally don't have the first stomach. So they tend to eat the fat. So we find other animals that don't have the first stomach and have only one stomach. They eat meat or fish that has fat in it. And fish also eat grass, that's seaweeds and other things that have fat in it. You seaweeds are, for example, they have about 20% fat. Human beings also, if they want to be vegetarians, then they are advised to ferment their food properly. And you find that all societies, our ancestors, always fermented the grains they ate, like maize. They will insist that you shouldn't eat grains raw. You shouldn't ferment it first. And that makes it important to produce the fat in your body.
In your body. Now, doctor, when you were talking, you were listing those fats, those oils that we need to, the fats that we need to. And when you listed coconut, you went and then you mentioned olive oil, palm nut. But then in the listing of these ones, the coconut oil and others were told that they were not good for our consumption. Olive oil was not added to it.
Well, let's put it this way. In the 1950s, about 40 years after the unsaturated vegetable oils were introduced as good for food, the doctors noticed that the diseases like high blood pressure, heart problems, that's atherosclerosis, diabetes, eye, glaucoma, cataract, prostate, all these things started increasing. So they had to find out what was happening, especially with heart problems. It was easier to notice that when somebody died of a heart problem, there was something called atheroma, that's the atherosclerotic plaque. In those days, the pathologists tested what really was in it, and they found that it was fat and cholesterol. So it was known that when you ate saturated fat, especially animal fat, your cholesterol level went up. But when you ate the unsaturated vegetable oils, your cholesterol level went down. So it was to them logical to say that saturated fat was
the problem,
causing the cholesterol to be there. However, in 1988, actually in 1972, it was found that the cell did not just exist like that. It had fatty acids around it. So the scientists started studying what the fatty acids did there. Well, they found that the fatty acids were so essential to the survival of the cell. Then they went on. In 1980, it was found that there are two types of cholesterol. Actually, there are about 6 types, but 2 types were considered very important for the health of man. One of them was called the HDL cholesterol, which was made up purely of cholesterol. There was no fatty acids in it. The other one was called LDL cholesterol, which had a lot of fatty acids in it. When it was examined, it was found that it was mainly polyunsaturated fatty acids. You can look it up in any biochemistry book. Then the pathologists then went back to study the plaque, which normally kill people or give the high blood pressure. And they found that that was also full of polyunsaturated fatty acids and cholesterol. So they call that LDL cholesterol. So LDL cholesterol, you can look it up anywhere, is made up of polyunsaturated fatty acids and cholesterol, and not saturated fatty acids. Based on this, a lot of people decided to do what they call cohort studies or population studies, or group of people, they study them about it. And it's been found by a lot of these experiments that if you eat saturated fats, your HDL cholesterol went up, and your LDL cholesterol went down, and your cholesterol levels were balanced properly. But if you ate unsaturated fat, especially polyunsaturated fat, your cholesterol, LDL cholesterol went up and the HDL went down. So it was found that the polyunsaturated fatty acids which were causing this. Now your question is about olive oil.
Yes.
Olive oil is made up of mainly monounsaturated fatty acids. I'm sorry I'm using these terms because I don't have any other words to use.
Other words to use.
Right. The monounsaturated fatty acids were not in the plaque. Now, if you look at any animal, any mammal, you will find that the fat in the body is made up of 3 main fats or fatty acids. That is palmitic acid, which is found in palm oil, stearic acid, which is found in palm oil, shea butter, and cocoa butter, and oleic acid, which is found in olive oil. So if you look at olive oil, you find that it has about 80%, between 70 and 80% of oleic acid, and then palmitic acid, about 10%. And it does not have much of polyunsaturated fatty acids. So it was found that this has been one of the traditional oils which were eating in the olden days. If you go to the Middle East where these things
were grown, yes.
Everybody talks about olive oil. If you come to tropical countries where you have palm trees, and especially palm trees in the West Africa, it was exported to Malaysia. And then where they have coconut oil, in the Saharan area they have shea. Find that the traditional oil for centuries have always been these oils. In addition to this, all the other social groups around the world were eating butter. Nobody was eating unsaturated vegetable oils. So you can see that when you list oils that are good for food, then you will mention olive oil, which is unsaturated fat, but it is not polyunsaturated. The crux of the matter is on the level of polyunsaturated fatty acids in the oil. So
that gave the coconut the initial problem.
Yes. So the initial problem was they thought that unsaturated fats were causing the cholesterol plaque problem.
Yeah. And so now, if we look at coconut oil now, what are some of the advantages that we can say in consuming coconut oil?
Well, let's put it this way. It's not only coconut oil, but coconut oil is good to taste if you do it well, the type we produce. That's why, and also, most people don't know much about palm kernel oil. But coconut oil and palm kernel oil are similar. And if you look at our history, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, always, after eating palm oil, took the palm kernel and turned it into oil, and they kept it in their bedroom as a treasure. Whenever the child became sick or any of their children complained about whites, they would just ask to eat it, drink some of this, and it will go. It was supposed to even to cure malaria. I mean, that's what I'm told. Well, I don't know. But I know that they are food. And the thing that these two oils do is that they produce the palmitic, the stearic, and oleic acid, which are used for protection of the cells. And doing that, the cell actually uses them. So if a cell has a problem, let's say the cell has the wrong fatty acids and it's been attacked, or by some means the signals are not moving through, the body itself has got something called apoproteins. These apoproteins are cell-targeting proteins. They go to the cells which are having problems, and they move the fatty acid around it and make new ones using the fatty acids in the coconut oil to cover it and protect it.
And protect it.
Yes.
So it means that, can I therefore say, the layman's point of view, say that if I start consuming coconut oil now, when my cells start developing problems because of the eating of coconut oil, the apoprotein can decide to dismantle the bad.
So they will go there, and the cell itself will dismantle,
and then they put a new one around.
Yes.
So then it means that I'll start developing good health.
Exactly. Actually, there are people who have had fibroids.
Yeah.
They've eaten coconut oil and it's been cured without any operation. And there are lots of examples around. There are lots of people who've had hypertension and they eat coconut oil with their food. And within 4 weeks, the pressure goes down and becomes normal. Lots and lots of people. I myself, I tried it on myself. People who are having traces of glaucoma or cataract, and they start eating at the age of 40, then they realize that they throw away their spectacles. Lots and lots of examples. People, ladies, women who cannot enjoy sex. They start eating coconut oil and they begin to say, oh, what has happened to my husband? Where did he go? Men. People eat it after the period. I mean, if they are not having children, they become fertile. Lots and lots of examples.
And lots of examples. So, doctor, now, if I should ask you, we have a lot of oils in town. Some of them said cod liver, seed, sunflower, this one, and they come with costs. But they look very presentable. And we've been made to believe that this is what is good for our health. WHO, the World Health Organization, would have these are all certified oils for our consumption. Coconut oil is not listed there.
It's a pity we are talking about the World Health Organization. It's done a wonderful job. One must give them the credit, at least for the 6 deadly diseases and many other things. They've done a wonderful job. But the World Health Organization is extremely worried about why they are not able to stop these non-communicable diseases and obesity. They even held a conference, the assembly, in 2004, purely on this. 2002, they did a research paper on this. And they didn't know what was happening. Their conclusion was that from the food. Unfortunately, from my study of those documents and documents around it, and lots of people around the world, scientists, have complained that there's an error in what they are saying. Yeah. The error I see is that instead of accepting that saturated fats are good, they are insisting that people should eat polyunsaturated fatty acids. And unfortunately, the Ministry of Health are bound by association to accept what the World Health
Organization has thrown out to us.
Yes, they're now saying that because you don't eat much fruits, you don't do this exercise, all these things have been tried. And in America, almost everybody is sick.
Yes, almost everybody is sick. That's right.
Autism, for example, but almost 2 million people with autism. The rest of the children have attention deficiency. The problem basically is that, as I said, the cell is the core of everything. And the cell
we need to protect our cells. We need to protect it, yes.
Does not require polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Yeah.
It uses saturated fat. And whenever they go to any of these conferences, the countries that dominate happen to be America and Britain.
That's right.
Recently, I'm sorry, maybe
that is where
I want to bring.
Yes, right.
Denmark made a law in 2004, in effect banning processed unsaturated vegetable oils. It was taken to court that it was practicing a sort of trade barrier, creating trade barrier against processed unsaturated vegetable oil. So after a lot of negotiation, they put a heavy tax on imported saturated fats. And they are still eating.
And they are still eating.
And then their health is improving considerably.
Right. I know that, for example, I would love us to go on and on, but I think I don't have time. But the important thing you mentioned is looking at the strength of men, the strength of fertility. And if you look around, it looks as if they have, so almost everywhere you pass is an aphrodisiac. And it's a very big problem now. I would give some 3 numbers out here that you can call. Doctor would come back and would expand these interviews and would make sure that we'll get to where you will understand if it is important, why it's important for you to eat coconut oil and put a stop to those ones that you are consuming as that one that is giving you, if it is quality or standard. Let me give you because I would love that you people will have a problems will have to be talking to doctor about it. All right, I would give the numbers at the end of the show. Doctor's numbers, 3 numbers, I'll give them at the end of the show. Let me say a very big thank you to Dr. Kakuchiame for being with us on Sunrise, talking to us about coconut and health. And Doctor, I think we will be inviting you more very often so that we can get to know what we're not doing right and what we can do to improve our health.